I think we should respect AI. I don't like saying we should fear it, and I also don't think we should just, love it and use it all the time. We should respect it. Artificial intelligence is a misnomer in that there's no actual intelligence. It is artificial, but there's no intelligence. Anything that can be automated with algorithms doesn't actually require intelligence. A lot of this tech, it really is going to connect us in new and innovative and very, very cool ways. And that's one of the reasons why I actually got in the field in the first place, was so that we can realize a dream where our world is more connected, where it's where we're able to do more, where we're able to see more, experience more, learn more, and hopefully better our society as a result.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and we're back for another episode. And our guest today is Mo Hafez. He's the CEO of ByteWise LLC, and an AI strategist and consultant, and a lecturer at Johns Hopkins University. Mo is also a public speaker and the host of Beyond the Byte podcast. And we'll probably dive a little bit into what that entails a little bit later too. He's also the champion of ethical technology. And we also were having a conversation about an avid strategy board gamer. I was like, okay, please tell me a little bit about this, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I was like, please tell me what this is.
Oh, you want to know about
the avid strategy board game?
Absolutely. I growing up, I played chess with my father, and chess, of course, is a strategy game. Head to head, we actually, we use it actually to make decisions. It's great for teaching logic and reasoning. But from that, I branched out and played a lot of strategy board games and war games, which again emphasize strategic decision making and planning, and a lot of these really, really wonderful core skills that are used. Nowadays we use them a lot in machine learning and intelligence as well.
I love that. And the fact of war gamer.
Yeah, war gaming. I mean, there's one game, for example, and I'll geek out about it for a second, called, there's chess is the head-to-head, right? You're making 1, 2, 3 moves. Okay. But there's a war game called Twilight Imperium. It's a very nerdy space conquest game, but it involves a lot of strategic decision-making. It involves planning your moves ahead. It also involves a lot of diplomacy. So a lot of it is, you're going with a bunch of these people, and you have to work with them, but also have to try to win the game. So there's an aspect of competitive cooperative. And this is very interesting because, again, war games, strategy games help us optimize decision-making. And when you gamify something, that is how you actually end up getting optimal decision-making. We use that actually in AI as well.
I remember back in the 1980s, the movie War Games. Did anybody watch that? Did anybody remember that?
Born in 87.
Man, is it dating my age? Kurt, do you remember war games?
For some reason, Real Genius, where they do the pop, they have the popcorn thing the size of the house that they focus a laser from a satellite. I remember that movie.
Which one is that?
Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World's playing at the end. I don't know.
Gosh. I mean, you probably remember.
I do. It's interesting that you mentioned that.
It was like one of my favorite movies as a kid, and I don't know why, but it was very intriguing to me.
I mean, it's great. It's about a kid who basically gets a hold of this machine, that is actually running nuclear warheads, and it ends up, almost annihilating humanity because it starts, wants to send off warheads, which I say is interesting that you bring that one up. Because there's been a study done about artificial intelligence, and they found that when they let AI take more and more control over these scenarios, it ends up is escalating the conflict, and it's because of the fact that war is treated as a game, and the object is to win the game and to make better strategy. So a level of escalation is going to happen when you make something competitive like that. And it's one of the reasons why we are talking about ethical AI, ethical machines, ensuring that we continue to have the kind of our thumb on the button of AI as opposed to letting it be automated, because then we can really be in for some unfortunate conflicts.
So speaking of winning the game, give me some more, Mo. I think that it's very difficult for, the average individual to understand how much AI has already changed the world.
Yeah.
and how fast it's absolutely moving. And so since this is something that you really keep up with, when we're teaching our founders that they need to be including AI in the businesses that they build, we have to have a bunch of experts 24/7 studying this in order to serve up what the latest and greatest is. So how do you keep up with that? What would be like the 3 major things and resources or things to keep in mind when somebody's really wanting to kind of think about how they can be on the right side of AI to leverage it for actually winning the game in a positive way?
That's a fantastic question. And it's one that I've actually quite passionate about. It's why I founded ByteWise. Number one is education. It's learning. And it's not just, and especially with AI, because AI nowadays can do our homework. And you hear about it in colleges and schools. Teachers are freaking out because they're like, well, okay, now a student I can say, write an essay, and the student can go and tell ChatGPT, write the essay for me. So what's the point? Well, education, understanding how these machines work, understanding what you can do with them. It's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful piece of technology. But at the same time, we need to understand how it works on the inside. And one of the things that we teach at ByteWise, we do all these events. We teach the fundamentals of AI, how it has come to be, how it has evolved from being actually a symbolic and logic-based system that makes decisions based on an algorithm and sort of say, if this, then that, to now it has become more of a statistical model. It actually is fed huge amounts of data. And based on that data, it's able to actually create these projections, these models that allow it to anticipate and be able to come up with its own synthetic data. Knowing that is important because now it helps us understand the value of data. So to answer your question, AI has had a huge impact already on society because it's been around for, I don't know if we're coming up on 70 years actually for AI. AI started in 1955 as a project in Dartmouth. But over the past 10, 20 years, it's been part of our lives, whether you realize it or not. When you're looking at Netflix queues, when you're typing in a question in Google, when you're using Google Maps or any kind of Maps application, all of that has been using AI to optimize and to give you the best results and what you want. But all of that is done with predictive modeling, and so it's fed all of this data, and our data is what has made it what it is today. So understanding it is number one. Education, knowing it. Number two, curiosity. It is an evolving technology, one of the most rapidly evolving technologies, and why I love what I do, because you really constantly need to be learning, and learning what the new tools do and how they work, so that you can do really cool things with it. There's a professor I follow, a wonderful professor named Luciano Floridi, and he talks about how what he calls the cleaving power of technology, which is that AI now and other technologies have allowed us to redesign our world. We're now in the age of design. We actually can do a lot of things. We can redesign our world, and in many ways, AI has already infiltrated our world in that we have, instead of making AI match our world, we've made our world match AI. We've actually made our world become more AI friendly. And so again, going back to it, education, curiosity, playing with these tools, but then ultimately jurisprudence, being aware of the ramifications of an autonomous system and having the wherewithal to sort of to say, hey, I need to be ethical about how I need to begin with the end in mind. So curiosity, experimentation, but also making sure that there's always a human in the loop, and that we have to be above the machines, not let them be the ones that are running our lives.
Is there a favorite book you have on the topic, whether it's like Life 3.0 or maybe it's, I think it's called The Next Wave?
Yeah, that's a great book. The Next Wave. I think it's by what's his name, Yuval. I forget his name, but
Father of Deep Mind.
That's right. Yes, and then there is another book that I love. Actually, it's by Dr. Floridi, which is it's actually called The Ethics of AI. That's a fantastic book. I highly recommend. There are also is a wealth of knowledge on the internet. You can use AI to learn about AI, by the way. But the key, of course, is to remember that these machines make mistakes all the time. So it's always important to don't just use it as your primary source. Just like back in the day, we used to tell people, don't let Wikipedia be the only thing you use for your research papers.
Do you have a particular resource with all your vast experience, though, that you would recommend other people kind of go? Obviously your podcast, but is there a resource that you feel is kind of vetted and a good source of knowledge if somebody's like looking to get their feet wet?
Honestly, there's no one single resource. There's a lot of newsletters out there that are constantly informing people about what the technology is doing, and there's Substack. So I have a Substack as well, and there's Medium is a great platform where a lot of really learned people about AI who have great followers are constantly outputting information about what they're doing with it, and so that's really a great place to learn. Is places like Medium, so newsletters where you're getting people who are on the kind of on the hot button topic and experimenting and using the newest tools, as opposed to any antiquated sort of book that has kind of not caught up with the times. And then other than that, for experimentation, Hugging Face is a website that I'm sure many are familiar with, but Hugging Face is a great library of transformers and models and things that you can download and play with. I would just look for open source, anything open source, and learn by doing, learn by experimenting. I tell people you can build your own ChatGPT at home on your own computer and teach it yourself. It could be your own personal assistant, like Jarvis for Tony Stark. Those are wonderful places to learn and experiment.
But with that being stated, should we still be afraid of AI taking over?
That's a great question, and one that I get a lot. I think we should respect AI. I don't like saying we should fear it, and I also don't think we should just love it and use it all the time. We should respect it. It is a wonderful tool. It can do great things. We talk about how it empowers human creativity. It has unlocked doors. It opened a wealth of resources because it itself can do things that used to require a lot more resources and time. But we are still the ones kind of who need to be the creativity and the thinking. So we should respect it because it's autonomous and can do these wonderful things, but it's because it's autonomous, it can also do some really, really terrible things. This is where ethics comes into place. We have to remember that artificial intelligence is a misnomer in that there's no actual intelligence. It is artificial, but there's no intelligence. Anything that can be automated with algorithms doesn't actually require intelligence. If we can make a machine that just is fed an algorithm and said, hey, do this and you're good to go and you pass the test, it's not intelligent. It mimics intelligence. That's all it does. It mimics behavior that would otherwise that we say, oh, if a human does that, that's smart. But it's in and of itself, it's not smart. It's just mimicking intelligence, and in so doing, it actually has achieved some phenomenal results. But that being said, because it does that, we should respect it. We should be careful what we do with it. We should, as I mentioned, begin with the end in mind. Our intention with what we do with these automated systems is going to be crucially important, and then also understanding and keeping up with it as it evolves and as it runs. We need to make sure that, again, we continue to have our thumb on it.
As we're growing in the society in this direction, like, what do you see being the most, exciting parts of AI empowered, in the future? Like, what are some of the things that you think are going to be happening?
I mean, here's the thing. I love that question because I hear about AI doing all these amazing things, but it also means that it's going to replace jobs. And that means that, some of us are going to say, well, I used to do this and now AI can do it. I don't know if you guys know, but for example, Google, you can go to Google right now and Google Gemini, you can feed it a topic. and I've done this, and it can come up with a podcast with two people with audio talking about that topic. It literally creates a half an hour I'm not joking. It creates a half an hour podcast about
like
that
the
topic.
Voice and everything.
With the voice
like
and everything.
Just like a beam, like
right
there.
Right. So it's
what is it called? It's just on Google itself.
Yeah, it's Google. One of Google Gemini's capabilities now is that you can actually say, I would like to do.
And Gemini is more accurate for a lot of things than OpenAI is. ChatGPT, sir.
These models all have their strengths and weaknesses. Not all of them are good at that. Some are good at some things, and some are good at other things.
Do you have some favorite ones that?
Oh yeah, I mean, so for research, I'm a huge fan of Claude, Anthropic's Claude, because of the fact that it's really limited in its ability to be creative. It is creative, but it really it makes sure it sources all of its data very, very well. ChatGPT, on the other hand, is a lot more creative, and therefore you'll get a lot more varied and wonderful creative results as a generative model. But at the same time, it's much more likely to also draw wrong information.
I've seen a lot of like strong information come from Copilot.
Copilot is great, but and Copilot's niche is that it is,
pulls from like direct resources.
It pulls from direct
links
resources.
Everything, which is really powerful because then you can go back and support the data that it's actually stating. Which
Exactly.
Is great. Yeah.
Exactly. But going back to the question, we absolutely can be excited because of the fact that AI can do so much. And once you start introducing robotics into the equation, then the dream of having a machine that can fold our laundry is potentially realized there. And then that frees us to do other things, to be more creative, to go out and do more. And of course, this is where the education comes in, because if AI is going to start doing these things, then we need to learn how to work with it so that the jobs aren't being replaced. They're evolving. They're evolving to being more tech-related jobs. And so we can really expect some wonderful things to come out of this. Society is going to be enhanced in a lot of different ways. But we as human beings, we have to remember that this is not just going to make us, we don't want it to make us lazier, right? Which is that's another fear actually when it comes to AI and why we should respect it, is that we don't want it to make us a lazier species. We want it to empower us to do more and to go out and be able to achieve more and create value and solve problems like pollution and ocean plastic and world hunger and things like that. This is where we want people to be able to actually use AI to make our world better, and it comes with education, with experimentation. It's an exciting world.
I think it also keeps us honest, though. I mean, if we think of like Joseph Schumpeter, who is an economist, used to talk about creative destruction. So a great example would be like looking at Blockbuster and how, Netflix came in and ate their lunch.
Yeah.
I don't know that there was anything that Blockbuster, other than being smarter about the way they were going about things, or Kodak with the camera and everything else, smartphones and things like that. I don't know that that is going to happen. So I think it's kind of a clarion call to everybody to say, maybe the thing that you're most concerned about is losing your job to AI, but you should be more concerned about who is my competitor that's going to use AI to augment themselves, accelerate, and supercharge their efforts and the quality of the value that they're bringing to the market. That, I think, should be a bigger topic of conversation, both for professionals and for entrepreneurs that are looking to leverage AI to create better margins, speed, accuracy, better products, services, those kinds of things.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So with your passion, with what we've talked about, obviously even in before, is fascinating, and the wealth of knowledge. What got you like fired up about doing? Like, I can hear the passion coming out of you. Was it what kind of sparked that for you?
Well, I've always been a tech geek, and ever since I was a kid, the idea of robotics and robots and machines being able to do things for us, the Jetsons and things like that, has obviously shaped my worldview. Yeah, I love the Jets. That's we all kind of look for a future where we walk out of our door into a little shuttle that flies us over to our work, or this kind of stuff.
Is that going to be happening soon? I've heard.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen flying cars.
When are we getting the hoverboard? That's the question. When are we getting
the hoverboard? Yeah.
The future, like all of it.
We still haven't even seen. I'm still looking forward to drone deliveries. I know that's being tested in certain smart cities and things like that. But
I've seen the commercials.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. So I've always been excited about that. So I've been a technologist for most of my life. Even when I actually was an economist, an econ major, so I started off in banking and finance, but I've always been a tech geek. And around the time of the financial meltdown in 2008, I decided, hey, what am I doing? I love tech. I love hacking and cybersecurity and all this stuff. So I got into it, and ever since then, it's been wonderful because technology can do so much. And I'm not just talking about right now. What we do, we're talking about AI because it's a hot button topic and buzzy and everything like that. But let's not forget about drones and 360 and virtual reality and augmented reality and extended reality. I mean, these are all things that are going to fundamentally change the way we learn and the way we play, right? Like, whether you think the dream of the metaverse is a paradise or a hell in terms of like the fact that it's all digital and stuff like that.
Have you gone in the metaverse?
I have. Oh yeah, of course.
Have you podcast in the metaverse?
I have not podcasted in the metaverse, although we actually I had a startup a while ago. It was a nonprofit startup where we were mapping underwater structures and shipwrecks in 3D in VR, and we were creating virtual environments. So we were like, okay, well now we can take these. This was 15 years ago. And now we're saying, okay, well, we can take these things and we can put them in the metaverse as actual real locations that people can then go and check out and dive and do all that kind of stuff. So the metaverse is very cool. If anybody's seen Ready Player One, the idea of being able to go into this world and play and do all this stuff is awesome. When we talk about presence, the idea of, hey, if I want to be able to project my digital self or have my family's digital, projection while I'm overseas or what have you, be able to talk to each other so that we feel like we're in the same room. A lot of this tech, it really is going to connect us in new and innovative and very, very cool ways. And that's one of the reasons why I actually got in the field in the first place, was so that we can realize a dream where our world is more connected, where it's where we're able to do more, where we're able to see more, experience more, learn more, and hopefully better our society as a result.
Can you put this into perspective for everybody? I've kind of said, when blockchain came around, it was the most significant invention since the internet. And I think that AI blows it out of the water because of the speed at which it will be adopted.
Yeah.
Look at how many people are using even ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
So since this is something that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, is there any way that you can maybe put in perspective from what your viewpoint is, how big, how impactful, and I don't think it's logarithmic. I think it's exponential.
Yes.
The impact of AI is now and will continue to be as it just continues to be like a bell curve.
I appreciate that question so much. I don't know if there's an interesting statistic about the internet, in that the internet took about 7 years to reach 100 million users. ChatGPT did it in 6 minutes. And that's just one of those things where, this is when you talk about exponential, that's one of the reasons why this thing completely, blew blockchain and out of the waters, because all of a sudden everybody was using it. And the thing is, technology builds on top of itself. So the AI couldn't have come without the internet. Right. And so the internet was this huge database of data and knowledge and everything. And AI has been training on it for years and years and years and years. And so now when we talk about the state of AI now, it's because it has achieved that by building on it stood on the shoulders of giants. It built on prior tech. So to answer your question, the speed is going to continue to get faster and faster. So much so that, this is where some people then start to be afraid or scared about it, because they go, well, I don't know what to expect, right? If in 1 year, this thing could create a video of Will Smith eating spaghetti and it looks so awful, but a year later, that same video that people were laughing about, all of a sudden now it's able to create photorealistic scenes in Japan and blah, blah, blah. That happened in 1 year based on training. Well, what does that mean? What's going to happen in another 1, 2, 3, 4 years, right? Like with all this training. There's also the dream of what we call AGI, or strong AI, artificial general intelligence, the idea that this thing will be so smart that it can think for itself. I personally think that this will. I don't think this will be fully realized, and you can mark my word. I'm happy to be one day. Well, I hope I'm one day correct about this and not wrong. But I think the idea of an artificial general intelligence that can just answer everything and do everything is going to be something that we don't want. But it's what people are afraid of now when we talk about this technology being so smart that it can do a lot of this stuff. What I think it will do is it's going to fundamentally change society, because of the fact that it is able to automate so many things that we used to do, and it's going to and jobs and things that we used to say, well, that's what I do, A, B, and C. Well, guess what? Now a machine can do it in a tenth of the time. So jobs are going to change. People are now talking about universal basic income as becoming something that's actually really, really important to think about, because all of a sudden there's going to be a lot less people doing whatever it was that machines are now doing. So it's going to change. It's going to also change fundamentally. It could potentially change democracy. It could change politics. It could change how information is actually passed on. There's so many changes, and I could sit here and put on my kind of futurist thinking hat and say, well, I think it'll go in this direction, it'll go in this direction. But no matter what, I think we can all agree that it is absolutely going in a direction that is going to change things in a very, very fundamental way. And I'm excited actually to see what the world looks like in another 2 or 3 years. But also excited and also with a bit of trepidation. And this is why, going back to what we do at ByteWise, which is education, we want people to be empowered with tech and to learn it, so that whatever the world looks like in 3 or 4 years, the humans are still the ones that understand how it got there and help shape it.
So if we can agree that everyone's using it, then that means that there's bad actors that are using it as well. So what's your favorite recommendation as an educator and someone that deeply studies this for those of us as to what safeguards we might be able to put in place? Because, there are some bad actors out there that are pretty bad.
Yeah.
They are absolutely scheming on how to leverage this.
Yeah. There's a very famous ex-Googler named Mo Gaudet, who is, he actually has phenomenal things to say about this, which is, yes, AI has a lot of potential bad and bad actors. And now we talk about good AI versus bad AI. When we talk, especially in, for example, cybersecurity. So in cybersecurity, we use AI to detect fraud and to detect, somebody who's trying to hack a server and things like that. But there are malicious actors that are using AI to try to fool those algorithms. And so before you know it, it is going to be a good AI versus bad AI, but we've been here before. This is not new. It's just new with AI. But the idea of technology being used negatively while it's also being used positively and having the two battle each other is something that we've seen before, right? And one of my favorite lines is actually from Batman, when Batman Begins, where he talks about, when the cops start wearing bulletproof vests, the criminals are going to start using armor-piercing bullets, right? So it's this aspect of the race of who's able to achieve their ends. And so not to keep stressing it, but again, it's going to be about more of the good people, more of the good guys trying to do good things with AI than the bad. It's going to be about being open, and what I mean by open is really sharing knowledge, putting it out there, talking about it. And this is one of the reasons why the Beyond the Byte the podcast exists, is because we want people to understand more about the uses of AI currently, and so that we're aware of the good uses, but also we're aware of the bad uses. And so that we can try to shape policy around it, so that we can ensure that world governments can actually collaborate on this thing called AI in a way that governs it equally, right? We talk about the EU having their AI Act, right? Whereas the US kind of still, we have our own AI Act, but it has a lot less regulation. We're still the wild, wild west over here. And frankly, a lot of people love that. But it's going to take us being aware of the bad uses so that we can go after it. We can govern it. We can also come up with better and better tools to combat those bad uses. So, that was the long answer. The short answer is there's going to be good AI and there's going to be bad AI, and we need to be aware of those bad uses so that we can counter it and avoid it and govern it and try to criminalize it.
And people can learn more through ByteWise, and Beyond the Byte podcast. Where else can people reach out, connect with you, connect with your company on social media? Share a little bit more about how they can connect with you.
Sure. Well, we're right now, our presence is on LinkedIn. So we have a huge presence on LinkedIn. We are also putting a lot of, we do virtual events, we do in-person events, and right now we're doing in-person events in the DC Metro Virginia area, in the DC area, which is of course a huge bed of innovation there. We have our AI Innovators Network that we encourage everyone to join. It's called the ByteWise AI Innovators Network. So you can go to bytewise-llc.com and sign up. Or sign up on LinkedIn. And that way you can stay up to date with what we're doing with our events. And we're hoping to bring events actually to more places all over the US and globally as well. But we really love these in-person events. We find that they are really wonderful for fostering innovation, especially in a post-COVID world where people are now more used to sort of, being on a Zoom call or anything like that. We want people to be in person. And we found that when people are in person, they're more likely to be engaged, to ask questions, to interact not just with whoever's giving the presentation, but also with each other. And in so doing, a lot of really wonderful ideas come to play. I think an idea is only as good as the execution. And I think execution requires, again, a lot of different minds. So that's where people really can learn. We're going to be doing more and more of these events and engaging with the podcast as well.
I love that. I love that. Well, we could talk about AI all day long. And I appreciate you, Mo, for joining us today. And those of you that are watching this show, be sure to check out his events, check out his LinkedIn, check out Beyond the Byte podcast, and just connect with anything that he says in this world right now, because we know that AI is not going anywhere and it's going to keep growing. So those of you that are watching the show, be sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and we'll see you in the next episode.